Thank you everyone for jumping in and making some time and sharing a little bit of your late morning or early afternoon with us. Um, we'll try and make the most of our time together. My name is Jennifer Stutz, and I'm a product marketing manager with Taranis, and I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes or an hour or so. Before we jump into the content and the things that we have to share with you today, I want to give you a little bit of background about how all this came about, like why all these webinar invitations kind of flooded the universe in the last couple of days. So our team was at Commodity Classic a few weeks ago, and a lot of you are probably there too. And at Commodity, we had a lot of really great conversations. And really, even thinking back to, conversations in November and December and January and February, with retail and with growers, our conversations with the entire team have been phenomenal. And what we wanted to do is take this opportunity to do a little bit of follow-up, make sure all your questions are answered, and really keep that conversation going, keep that excitement going as we begin to get into planting season. I watched the news today before while I was getting ready, and they talked about a high of 82 in Illinois, but snow on Friday. So pretty normal, pretty typical. But that's kind of where we are. We're getting ready to go with planting season, and the excitement should be building. When I was preparing for the webinar and thinking about the content and talking with my team members, there were really three key things that started coming up over and over and over, reflecting on the conversations that we've had with you, with customers, with a lot of different folks over the last few months. And one of the first things that I really noticed, and probably one of the big themes, is, hey, I've got all this data, but I don't know what to do with it. And sometimes that can be a little paralyzing, but that was one of the themes of the conversation. And the next thing was really about time, kind of going back to the data. Oh, there's so much in time. You work hard all day long, your work days are long. And what you don't want to do is, when the work day is done, have to spend more time trying to understand the data that you collected throughout the day or over the last week or over the last month, right? So a lot of data and time. And then the third thing that I thought was really fascinating was about how different farming is now compared to how it was even 5 years ago. And that's kind of where the AI piece, came up with regard to the presentation. Let's answer all the questions about AI. Let's see where we are in the current state of farming and how Taranis is using AI. And let's have some questions about where this AI engine is going to take us in the future within agriculture. So I was thinking about those conversations and thinking about those themes, and was looking for something that was similar. What could tie all that together? And it really relates to challenges. I had a smart farmer, and probably every farmer would tell me there are no two planting seasons or no two growing seasons that are ever the same. And when I think about that, I was agreed, 100% agreed, but was really trying to think about the one thing that's consistent from season to season to season, and it's challenges, right? It's the challenges that we face. We're getting closer to that warm weather. Planting's about ready to happen. The grass is greening up. My husband was complaining about maybe having to cut the grass on Saturday. So when we get those seeds in the ground, we get the fields planted, one of the big things is, what's happening in my field? How's my emergence look? How did I do? Do I have weeds? What's my plan going to be once we get, everything planted and ready to go? And that's really where Taranis comes in. We help you know the answers to those questions so that you can spend, less time. One of those things that everybody likes to talk about, time, trying to make heads or tail out of your data, right? Again, that big data question. And when we help you save time, and when we help you make drive some clarity around all the data, what that allows you to do is really make quick, informed decisions when it matters in season to be able to drive profitability across your acres. So those are the kinds of things that we want to follow up with today. We're really, really excited to be here. We've got a great agenda. I'll give you a peek at what that looks like. I know you're not here to listen to me talk all morning or afternoon. So we're going to give you a high-level overview of where we are right now with AI in agriculture. We'll do a short demo and show you how Taranis is using that AI to help drive insights, right? We're still flying those missions. We're gathering that data, but how we're advancing, right? We're taking those findings, we're figuring out what the impact is, and we're going to tell you, what action should be. So we think about findings, impact, and action. And then we'll wrap up and we'll talk about where AI is going in the future in the agriculture space. And if we've got time, we'll try and squeeze some product updates in, but we didn't have time for that this morning. We really had some great conversation. To that end, we'll talk about a few housekeeping items. At the very bottom of your screen, there's a little Q&A button where you can drop questions in. So if you've got a question, if something piques your interest, feel free to drop those in and we will address all questions at the end of the webinar. We'll make sure all questions are answered. And if we happen to run out of time, we'll definitely get you some answers after the fact. You do have the option when submitting a question to be anonymous, right? So nobody knows who you are. And you also have the ability to raise your hand. There's a button that allows you to do that. But really, I would say one of the most important things, fun things for me and the team anyway, we've got an Amazon gift card for you. We've got an Amazon gift card for $200. For those of you who want to stick around through the Q&A, when we wrap that up, as the hour starts to close, we'll draw and announce the winner. So I know you've heard enough out of me. I'm going to turn it over to Gershom. He's our Chief Technology Officer, and I like to call Gershom our AI expert. So Gershom, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Jen. So we can go to the next slide, jump right in. Just to get started, I want to make one differentiation very clear. I think that it often gets confused in a lot of discussions around AI. I want to differentiate between the way that you acquire data, the way that the data is gathered or collected from the field, in our case, from the agricultural field, but if it's autonomous vehicles, so then it's the way that data is collected from the cameras on the car. And then there are the AI models that take that data and process it in order to generate some kind of an output, which can then be used to solve problems. If it's an autonomous car, so it can tell you what is in the environment of the car and therefore where the car should be driving to. In our case, in agricultural fields, it's of course the phenomena that we find in the fields, the species of weeds or the types of disease symptoms or the actual plants that we're counting when we do our stand count, our emergence flights. So I just want to start by talking a little bit about the data capture, the data acquisition that Taranis does. And I think that we are unique in this sense that we offer a full service solution. So we send the pilot to the field and he comes with the drone that we also provide. And then he flies the drone, the pilot will fly the drone over the field. And what you see here is the path that we're flying over the field. So we've actually invested a lot in developing the software stack to make sure that we've got an optimized path on the field where we can cover the entire field. And then because we're flying the drone in this particular configuration, we're getting very, very high quality, high resolution images. And that's the data acquisition. That's the data that we're then going to send into our AI models. So I do think it's important to understand that there's a difference here between the data acquisition layer or component and the AI models that process that data. So for example, if you want to talk about prediction models for irrigation in a field, and you can build AI models that are going to process data that's coming from moisture sensors that are embedded in the soil or from satellite imagery. The dominant factor there is going to be the way that you're capturing that data, the data that you're using to train that AI model. So you can have the best AI model in the world, but if it's not getting good data, so it's not going to give you good results. So that's a big part of the emphasis that we place on that solution, on the data acquisition solution. You can go to the next slide. And then we can see some of the sample images that we're capturing from the drones. So these are 2 sample images, typical of the images that we capture from the drone during our stand count flights. That's the first flight that we do about 2 weeks after the planting date, when the plants are just emerging from the ground, and we want to get an initial estimate for the grower about how well that emergence is coming, how many plants we're seeing, how uniform it is over the field. In the middle of these images are just some close-ups so you can get more detail. And one thing that I want to point out is that, as you can see, the images themselves look different from each other because the soil type is different. So one's much darker, and also the plants look different because they're at slightly different stages. And I would say that is a dominant factor in the performance of AI models. So in addition to how you capture the data, so what does that data look like? Your training data that you're sending into the models themselves. If your data is not very good or it's not very representative, then the model is not going to be very accurate. It's not going to be able to detect plants or predict phenomenon that were not included in its training data set or the distribution of the training data set. And that's another place where, to take Taranis, again, as an example, we've been servicing fields in the Midwest and the Corn Belt in the US for over 7 years. The data, we've captured millions of images for stand count, and then at different points in the season, we go back to those fields. We do typically 6 missions a year. So we've got millions of images for stand count, millions of images for wheat when we're looking for weed species, millions of images later in the season when we're looking for symptoms of disease and nutrient deficiencies. And we've then invested a lot in annotating those images. So creating that ground truth, marking up those images so we know exactly what we want this model to look for. And because we're doing this as a full service, we know that we've got a very diverse, a very rich collection of data that represents all of the diversity that we're going to find across this wide range in the US Midwest, as well as different times of the day and different soil types and different hybrids and varieties. So that's really, I would say, the primary factor that influences the precision of our models. For example, the particular architecture of the model, the particular AI model that we choose, is less of a factor than the quality of the data itself that goes into the model. In the world of AI, this is usually called a data-centric approach versus a model-centric approach, and we very much subscribe to the data-centric approach, where it's really the quality and diversity and richness of the data set that determines the overall quality of the model. So then once we've captured all of that imagery and we've processed it, and as you can see here, processing it in the AI models means that we're drawing these bounding boxes around all of the different plants that we find in the field, in the image in the field, and then we count up those boxes to determine the stand count for each region of the field. And recall that on the last slide, we showed you how we fly over the field. So we've actually got a good representation over the entire field. We've sampled the entire field, and then we can calculate what's the expected stand count in this example for each region of the field. And so these are, we've captured hundreds of images from the field, many hundreds, and we've run each of them through our AI models. And then we've got all of these tags on the images that tell us where the plants are emerging from the ground, and we can calculate the stand count for that region. So the total number of plants, estimate the total number of plants that are coming up in that region, and those are those bubbles that you see in the image above. And this is, of course, one of the important aspects of AI is you've got all of this data. So all of these images that we've captured, which in theory, someone can go in and start looking at the images and do his own analysis based on that data and drive towards certain decisions about how to treat whatever has been detected in the field and what applications to put on the field, et cetera. But there's a lot of data. And of course, as Jen mentioned earlier, we've all got finite time windows and decisions to make. And of course, in agriculture, those decisions are time sensitive. You want to be able to get out there and take the right action for your field while it's still relevant and while you can still impact your yield in the field. So the next step is to take all of this imagery and package it up into some kind of condensed representation. And that's the map that we've got above all of the images, where you can see all the bubbles that tell you what the different stand counts were for each region in the field. So why is AI important? Where does Taranis use AI, and where does AI, one of the places where AI really makes a big impact in agriculture in general is to do all of this work, to take all of this enormous amounts of data and condense it into something that's digestible in a short amount of time, where you can look at that result and look at that insight and then make a decision to use that information to treat your field or to solve whatever problem you're trying to solve. And that's one of the core reasons, the core motivations for us in terms of our development is we want to make sure that we're really able to give you that key piece of information in a finite amount of time, so you don't have to spend a lot of time doing all this analysis and getting lost in all of these this data that is really underlying the insight. So that's a summary of at least how we're using AI in Taranis. I'll turn it back to you, Jen. You're on mute.
I did that this morning too. You have to be my mute monitor. Thank you, Gershom. It's a great example of how we're using AI currently in agriculture and specifically how Taranis is using it. If we go back and think about those three key themes to the conversations, again, I have all this data that I don't know what to do with. Time, and really how is technology advancing things? How are things different now? And this is a great example of how that is. So I'm going to turn the reins over to Elena. She's with our customer success team. And what Elena is going to be able to walk us through over the course of the next few minutes is give us a demo and really be able to show all of the things that Gershom was talking about, right? How we're using AI. We've captured those images. Now, what do we do with it? What does it look like in our platform? I'm going to stop sharing and give Elena the screen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Ripberger, Customer Success Representative here at Taranis. And I am super excited to be giving you a live demo here today. I do want to preface that we do have a mobile app as well that is available. That is used, you can use georeferencing to do ground truthing in the field. But today I'm going to be showing you our web app. So Gershom talked about capturing the data and making it into a source where we are able to draw insights and take action. So this is our web app, and this is full of data from previous seasons that is anonymized. So I'm excited to kind of share with you how we are able to navigate this to make actionable decisions throughout the season. As you can see, there are a lot of colors and thresholds and words, but I'm going to show you in just a few simple clicks how you can really get to exactly what you're looking for, help prioritize and make your life more efficient on the farm. So I am going to click into here and just filter for our cornfields. So everything up here is clickable and filterable. There's not really a right way to navigate this. You will kind of find your groove. And I'm going to click on mission 1. So like Gershom said, our first flight is always a stand count. And we are also identifying weeds by grasses or broads. After our weeds or stand count, we are identifying weeds, insects, diseases, and nutrients all by species. So the one thing that we really need to get started is your boundaries, and those can be uploaded super easily by shapefiles, and then our planting date. So we do have a GDU model that calculates when that first stand count will be, and then there's usually 5 or 6 missions, and that's where the data really fills in throughout here. So I filtered corn in our mission 1. I'm going to scroll down and you can see all of the field data below. I am going to click the arrow next to the stand count, and this is going to sort my fields from least to greatest. So this really allows me to look at which fields had the lowest stand count, where do I need to draw my attention. I'm going to click on the 66% tile, and that's going to take us directly into our map view. So here, each bubble represents a data point or a picture. I'm going to click into one of those, and you can see each one of these squares is identifying a plant. So you can see we are really capturing this data right at emergence. Not only do we have this leaf level image, but over here on the right, I can scroll down and we have this macro view image. So this kind of gives us a broader view of the field, and we are able to look at a larger portion. You can also see over here on the left-hand side, there is some data associated. So you can see we are at that 66% of target population. There's also an option to toggle on this heat map or distribution map. And that is one way, one visual, we can kind of look at some different areas within the field. So it looks like down here on the southern portion, there's an area with a lower stand count. I can click into that dot and we are able to take a look at those images. So as you can see in the macro view image, this is a wet spot. Maybe some of these plants are being drowned out. One actionable decision we can make based on some of this data is actually making prescriptions. So if I hit the 3 dots here up at the top, I can create zones. This will compute for a little while, and then we are able to edit those zones however we see fit. We can reduce the amount of zones, kind of toggle them on and off. And then once we edit those zones however we see fit, we are able to create a prescription based out of that. So we can do this on our stand count data, we can do this on weed data to make spray maps. And once you add that prescription and fill in all your different rates, you can easily export this as a shapefile, and this can be plugged in directly to your equipment. And that's just one actionable decision that we can make based on this data. Another thing I'd like to mention is we are able to share these insights directly with our customers, our growers. So if I hit this note icon up at the top, that note is directly tied to the stand count. So I can add a note here, save that, and share it directly to our customers via email or phone. And I can also hit this button at the bottom, and this is tied to the whole mission. So if you're wanting to make a recommendation on both stand and the weed pressure, that's where you can write some of those notes. I'm now going to show you another example. So let's look at a weed insight. I am going to hit this red bar right here, and that's kind of a threshold where maybe there's some high weed pressure. So if I scroll down, I now see all of the fields that fall in that threshold. And I'm going to click on this field icon over here on the left-hand side. If I click on that field icon, it's going to take me to the timeline. So at the top, we have the map view and the timeline view. So the timeline view, I kind of like to look at as a report card or some progress that you can see throughout the season. So as you can see in this field, the first 3 flights or missions, we had some high weed pressure. You can also see where you made notes, and you can see the dates of when those flights were made. At the bottom, you will also see that we do include some field health information. So precipitation and temperature, you can see some of that data down here as well. You can hit that eye icon and kind of see that data over here on the right-hand side. I do want to mention that we, as a complimentary service, we offer satellite imagery. I do know that when talking to growers, satellite imagery can kind of be hard to depict. And so something unique about our field health insight, I'm going to click on one of these bars, is that we actually highlight some anomaly areas. So where there's changes from one image to the next, we're highlighting those areas. So maybe some conclusions can be drawn as to why we are seeing some of those changes. So like I showed you before, we in the past have been tagging weeds in that leaf level image, so that close-up image. But something new that we've actually rolled out is we are tagging weeds in our wide angle image. So if I click that macro view image, you can see all of these boxes where we are identifying weed pressure. And this is representative in this heat map. So you can see that this field did have quite a bit of weed pressure during this flight. Also, over here on the left-hand side, I do want to show you that you can toggle on this eye image. So if I click next to all species locations, you can see all of those red bubbles disappear. And if I want to look at just the specific species, I can click the eye icon next to that species. I'm going to click on Canada thistle, and you can see the red images, the red dots reappear. And in those images, Canada thistle was present. So you can see those thistles are in this image. I'm now going to go back to my recent insight page. And I'm going to show you a disease example. So if I hit that filter by more species down here at the bottom of diseases, I can see all of the species that were identified throughout the season. We often get a lot of questions about tar spot as it has had an increased pressure in the past couple of years. I'm going to check box that, and down below, all of these fields had tar spot identified at least once throughout the season. So I am going to sort by diseases, and I'm going to look at this field that had tar spot identified. And you're able to do this for any of the diseases, nutrients, insects, weeds, any of that. So I'm going to click that 66% tile. It's going to take me straight to that map view. And over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to use my eye icons to find exactly where that tar spot was identified. So as you can see, there is only one image in this field, which is a good case. It looks like we caught it early and it wasn't present in the whole field quite yet. So I'm going to zoom in, and here you can see there are the black specks. And that would be a great time to go out and ground truth and really have a touch point with the grower to see what exactly is going out in the field and to make some plans going forward. Something new this year also is our Ag Assistant feature. So if I click this recommendation button here at the top right and hit season recommendations and push try Ag Assistant, this is our language model, and it will populate some paragraphs under each category. And this is all editable. This is just another tool in your toolbox to kind of highlight what is going on throughout the season. Last year, this was available at the end of the season as a season review, but this year it will be available after each mission. And this can be edited and changed and also rated to make sure that you are having those touch points and sharing that with the growers so they're up to date at what is going on within their fields. Once you save that, that's when you're able to either download it as a PDF or share it, like I said, as an email or phone number, and it'll go directly to that source. So I am happy that I was able to give you that demo. Like I said, this is just a tool in your toolbox to make your life easier, more efficient, and have those touch points with growers to make informed decisions on the farm. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Elena. I think our web app does a really good job of tying things together when we think about the missions that are flown and the images and how we aggregate that data. And she touched on Ag Assistant for those season summary recommendations. We've heard a little bit about AI in agriculture and what Taranis is doing today to incorporate that into their platform, whether it's via the web app or via the mobile app. I'm going to turn it back over to Gershom to talk about, AI in agriculture and in future state. Where are we going? What does it look like? What things do we see coming or happening? I would encourage you to drop questions into the Q&A. I would say that the group this morning has you beat. They were a little chattier and a little more inquisitive about AI and what's happening in our space. No question is a bad question, so feel free to drop some Q&A in there when Gersham's done. If we have a little bit of time and no questions or not a lot of questions, I'd like to go through a couple of the product highlights that we're rolling out for you in 2025. And when I say 2025, that's in really a few weeks as we think about planting starting and the season beginning. So we're really excited about that as well. But Gershom, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you and share my screen again.
Okay, thank you, Jen. So I'm going to focus on Ag Assistant, which is what Elena already presented in the demo. And again, this is a product that we rolled out last season, but we're really investing a lot in it now towards this season. We're going to have an Ag Assistant recommendation after every mission, after every flight that we fly. And also in the future, this is going to be a big focus for us. So the overall context is, as I'm sure everybody's aware of what's happening in the world of AI at large with these large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude by Anthropic. And for us, the problem that we were looking to solve, as was referenced earlier, we've got lots and lots of data. We've got lots of data that we're capturing and tagging with our AI models. Elena also spoke about this season, we're going to be tagging on our macro view images as well. So we've got twice as much imagery that we're going to be processing. We're also interested in starting to look at other additional sources of data, which can really strengthen the context of what's happening in the field and what are the right decisions to make in order to act upon whatever was found in the field. So we would like to be able to incorporate things like what has the weather been in the field this season? If we have access to yield maps from previous years and we know something about what happened in the field in previous years, maybe we know which weed species were found in the field in certain areas. We may know something about resistant strains of weed species in that area. We often know what the hybrid traits are of the seeds that were used. So there's just lots of information that's available. And it's really too much information to expect that an agronomist or a grower is going to be able to process and really make decisions about what they should be doing in the field. And so the way that we're using these large language models in the context of our Ag Assistant product is to take all of the data that we have from the most recent insight, as well as any historical data that we have from the field, and many of these external sources, application schedules as well, in order to make a very concise, clear, and directed recommendation that the agronomist can then choose to pass on to the grower or edit and choose to pass on to the grower. But it's right there for both the agronomist and if he passes on to the grower to be able to take action very, very quickly. So for example, in this case, we're taking all of the imagery from our stand count and all these external sources, and then we're reporting out, okay, this is where your stand count came in. And we also found a couple of areas in the field that had low stand counts. You may want to consider replanting in those areas that they're low enough and they're going to impact the yield to the point where it may be justified to replant. And that's a decision that obviously the agronomist and the grower can take and decide if they want to go forward with that. But the information is there for them to process. Most of the, to give a little bit of background about what our development considerations were and what it looked like to work with these large language models, the first thing we did was look at the state-of-the-art models, take ChatGPT, the models behind ChatGPT and Claude, and see if we were able to get this kind of data out of those models. And that wasn't so successful. I'm not sure how strong they are as agronomists, those models. Certainly in a lot of cases that we looked at, they weren't very strong agronomists, or at least the advice they were giving wasn't consistent with the advice that we were hearing from our customers. And certainly they weren't tailored to the kind of data that we're able to capture within Taranis. And I think a lot of this goes back to what I said earlier, the quality of the model is, of course, very dependent on the quality of the data that came in. The data that we're training with, the data that we work with is proprietary data. So it's reasonable to assume that these models probably didn't have access to that kind of data when they were developed. So we built our own proprietary model. It's a small language model because it's smaller than these state-of-the-art models. And the focus really on that model is to reason. So we want to teach that model to be able to make conclusions, given all of this data, given all of everything that it knows about what's happened in the environment, what's happened in the history of this field, all of these external sources, and come up with a recommendation that's going to matter to the retailer, to the grower, to our customers. And that's really been the focus of our development. And it's producing this Ag Assistant product, which we're going to be releasing this season. So that's pretty much a summary of where our focus is in the future. We're going to be continuing down this path of using these large language models to help us process all of these different sources of data. Certainly, that's probably where a lot of the players in the ecosystem are looking. And we see a lot of value that's being created out of the recommendations that you can generate with these language models. So Jen, back to you, and we can certainly take any questions.
Perfect. We've got a few minutes. We don't have a ton of questions, so I do want to take just a minute and kind of highlight where we're thinking about driving these product improvements and releasing those out into the universe in the next couple of weeks. Gershom and Elena both spent a little bit of time talking about Ag Assistant and those season summary recommendations. And Elena showed you what that season summary recommendation looks like. And some of you are probably even familiar with Ag Assistant because we rolled it out last fall, and you had the ability to use that and drive some conversations with your customers. We are rolling out what we're calling mission recommendations, just like Gershom and Elena explained. And what that does is it builds onto the idea of those season summary recommendations. So when we think about what we're doing at Taranis, we're still going to fly your field. We're still going to take those images. We're still going to run those through the AI model and tag all of that. But going back to that initial, kind of conversation piece in the beginning is, man, I have all this data. What do I do with it, right? So the mission recommendation is going to take those leaf level insights and basically, very simply, turn them into words, right? Just like Gershom talked about, we're going to identify in words what the findings are that we saw. We're going to potentially identify the impact. What does this look like? If I found this, what's going to be the impact on my field? And we're going to help decipher and drive some action, right? What's the action? So we go back to findings, impact, and action. And what we believe is that that's going to help make decision-making faster, smarter, and more efficient. And if you take that one step further, we do have the ability this spring in 2025 to offer tailored product recommendations by brand, right? So as an advisor, you've got the ability to work with our team to identify brand-specific products or preferred chemistries that you'd like to see in that mission recommendation to address weeds, disease, or nutrient deficiencies. And if that's something that you're interested in and you're a customer, I would reach out to the customer success team to ask questions, or reach out to your sales rep to ask questions. I'm available for questions. And this is open to everyone. So that's another exciting feature that we're rolling out. We've got a lot of improvements that are coming to the mobile app, field profiles that are going to make the user experience better, and an interface that's going to be really easy to navigate. Enhanced communication tools. We talk about all of this technology that surrounds us in agriculture, but we also are just surrounded by technology in general. I have two phones on my desk, actually. So we have smartphones, we have smart watches. I got a smart TV in the living room. Everything is smart, 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 right? The improvement to the mobile app is going to be enhanced communication. You're going to be able to share insights this season and recommendations with your customers on the go, making things really easy. And just like Elena showed you in the web app, you can send those via email or you can send those via text. You'll be able to send text messages to your customers right from the mobile app. Hey, I've seen an insight. I'm going to make a note, and boom, you send it off and off it goes. And the last thing I'll touch on before we kind of address some Q&A, so keep throwing them in there. We got the gift card drawing coming up. We'll keep you for a few more minutes, is we've got something that we're calling a John Deere integration. So you know to get started with Taranis. If you've been with us before or you're going to sign with us and you're going to move forward with us, we just need a few key pieces of information to make sure and understand how to schedule those flights on your field. We need things like boundary, crop type, row spacing, target population, but the most important thing that we need is the planting date. That's really key because the planting date is what we use to schedule your missions. You know, and in the past, right, like last year, putting those planting dates into our system was manual entry. So with this John Deere integration that we're rolling out for 25, if you've got customers that are connected to you as a retailer, or you are a grower and you just want to connect with Taranis, we're going to have an integration that allows you to connect your John Deere account with Taranis. And basically, we're going to be doing data pulls. And after that field is planted, that planting date is going to automatically sync over. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. And we can start servicing your fields immediately. So that's another key feature that we're super excited about. We've got a couple of questions that have popped into the chat. One of the questions is, will we be able to view macro view tagged images like Elena showed on the phone app or only on the web app?
Jen, do you want to take that?
I can take that. And I will be transparent and honest. I don't know. I believe that the answer is correct. I can see who's done that. And what I'm going to do is follow up with my team and send you a message after the fact. We're doing a lot of enhancements to the mobile app. You're going to be able to see images. I'm going to say, I think that you're going to be able to see those macro view tagged images on your phone app, but I want to double check with my team and make sure I'm giving the right answer. And I will follow up with the individual who answered that question personally. I do have another question about, will there be push notifications on the mobile app when the mission has been completed and ready to view? Is that another one for me, Gershom?
Yeah, you can take it. I mean, there are, but go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say there are. And in fact, you've got, when you log into Taranis, the notifications are typically turned on. So you're getting notifications. You have the ability to turn those off, but you are getting those. And we're also looking to do, it's in the works right now with some of the engineers and some of the product team. When we think about push notifications and the ability to take timely action, I like to call it crowdsourcing, right? So when we think about, hey, I've got a grower, maybe he's got fields here and here and here, and you've got tar spot, maybe a county away, or you've got some other disease or insects a county away. In that radius of where those fields are, what we'd like to do and what I think we're going to try and roll out is be able to send a push notification to let you know, hey, in your area of fields, we've got some things happening, right? So what it's going to do is designed to say, hey, maybe I need to go out and look at my field and be preemptive. Everything about Taranis, we're really trying to drive proactive engagement, right, with our customers, with retail groups, instead of being reactive. And it's not always possible. And I think that's just Mother Nature and the way things work and the way disease and insects and all the things work. But that's really what we're working towards, is trying to move towards a very proactive nature of what we're doing and what we're trying to show you to get things in the very, very beginning so that you have the best possible result on your field. Are there any other questions that we want to pop into the chat? I've got, let's see, what else do I have, Gershom? How does generative AI improve efficiency and knowledge transfer for the ag retailer? Again, I think that question goes back to these bundles and bundles of data. What do we do with it? Time, how are we driving efficiency with AI technology?
Yeah. Okay, so the answer is that there's a lot of possible ways to take Gen AI and use it in order to improve efficiency and knowledge transfer. I would emphasize that, we tend to think of Gen AI as it's a technology, it's a tool, and so it can power lots of different applications. So for example, one possibility is to be able to use Gen AI to, if anybody's familiar with the terminology, there's a technique called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which allows you to use Gen AI to search for other text, other documents, and then you can find the relevant document and put it into the prompt and ask questions based on that relevant document in the prompt. So this is a way really to include data that wasn't necessarily included in the training data set and get a response from the language model that includes that new data. So that would be one way in which you could actually access, if you have stores of data from other ag retailers, that's a good way to transfer that knowledge using this Gen AI. So allowing you to look through other previous documents that were generated by in your knowledge base by other agronomists, let's say, and find something that's appropriate for whatever question you're asking now. So it's actually a very effective way to do knowledge transfer. In terms of improving efficiency, so I think that's exactly what we talked about on the Ag Assistant as a good example of a way to improve efficiency. It's the capability of these LLMs to reason. That's how we're using these language models. And obviously there's a lot recently in the news about that's really a major focus of the development of these language models. And so to the extent that you can throw lots and lots of data at these language models and they're able to reason, they're able to find the parts of that data that are particularly relevant for you or interesting for you, or maybe will change what you're going to do and how you're going to act. That's a key application of these language models. And that's going to happen generally in every industry, and certainly agriculture. There's clearly a need for that kind of a usage. So I think that those are the things that come to mind when I think about the ways in which Gen AI can be used for to improve efficiency and to transfer knowledge.
Thank you, Gershom. I'm going to tag another question onto that we see here. That's, we know how powerful AI is, and we've talked about where it's going in the future and how you just discussed how it can help drive efficiency, right, with regard to how people work day to day. With all of the work, I'm calling you my AI expert, with everything that you know about AI, and you know what we do at Taranis and how we interact with our customers and our growers. From your perspective, is AI going to take over the need for human decision making? Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so there's an expression that's been thrown around in the sort of around AI and related industries that use AI, which I like. Which is AI is not going to take your job, but your job might be taken by somebody who knows how to use AI. And that's certainly our vision within Taranis about where AI is going and where it's going to fit into these different tools that people will be using. That's why we call it Ag Assistant, because it's really designed to assist the agronomist. It's a tool to give the agronomist information in order to make better decisions and be able to give better service and tend to the field in a more effective way, improving yields, maximizing profits, etc. But it's not. We don't see this as something that's going to take the agronomist's job. It's really, we at least see this much more in the context of new technologies that come into play, which change the way you work. Let's say when the computers came into the workplace and everybody obviously had to learn how to use a computer. We think it's important to learn how to use AI and to learn these tools. And the velocity of development in this space is really quite remarkable. And so these things are changing very, very quickly. The new capabilities are coming out very quickly. As a practitioner, it's very hard to stay on top of what the latest thing is in the space. But all of that's good in the sense for people who know how to use it and are willing to use these tools, because you get more powerful and more effective tools and more efficient tools. And at the end of the day, they should and will, we believe, make one's job better. I'll just add on a personal note, one of the places where Gen AI has made the fastest inroads is in software development, writing code, where I would say in the last year or two, it's completely changed the way that developers work and the way that developers write code. So I still write code somewhat, a little bit, not as much as I would like to. And I'm spent a lot of time learning how to use these tools. And it's certainly, now that I'm getting more comfortable with them, it's certainly made my life my day-to-day work life much more productive, much more effective, and these tools really take a lot of the tedious aspects of the work away. So I spend more time working on interesting things and less time doing tedious work, and that's really, I think, a model for how AI is going to affect a lot of these different industries, and certainly the way we see that it's going to affect agriculture.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't see any additional questions that have popped into the chat. We can wrap up and give you a few minutes back, but really kind of to recap it, what AI is doing is it's taking those large data sets, it's helping summarize, condense, and really help save time. Kind of like what Gershom just talked about in terms of how it makes his day-to-day life easier. What we're doing here at Taranis is designed to make your day-to-day life easier and help enhance relationships with your customers, and allowing people to make data-driven, timely decisions at really critical points throughout the season, right? That's our goal. We will go ahead and do the drawing. Sarah's doing that right now, and she'll pop the information over to me. Thank you all for hanging with us, spending your late morning coffee break or a little bit of lunchtime with us. I think as we look forward into, what's going to be happening in 2025, the coming weeks and months, and even really years ahead, everybody's got a lot to be excited about. I'm excited. If you have questions or if you want to dive deeper into any of the updates, or you didn't want to ask a question here, feel free to send one of us a message. We'll be happy to get those answered to you. I will get the answer out with regard to the wide angle weeds in the mobile app, but you really, all in all, we look forward to working together so that everyone has a successful season. Most important, we're wishing you a safe and productive season. And if there's any way that we can help, we are here to do that. We're excited to partner with you as the 2025 season kicks off. So thank you for your time. We appreciate your time. Our gift card winner today, just like this morning, we have these names that I just don't know how to pronounce. I'm sorry. Craig Houin, Houin, I believe, from Ohio. So we will get you a gift card via the email that you registered at by the end of the day today. But again, thank you to everybody. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your time. And keep your eyes open on social media and in all kinds of places. We'll be doing some more of these coffee chats, lunch chats. We're just excited to share what we're doing with you, because what we're doing is really inventive and creative, and we think that it's going to help drive some efficiency within your organization and for your growers. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.